I'm with Russ Hirota from Yamaha. He's the assistant marketing manager for Yamaha in the acoustic division of pianos. Russ, it's been a crazy year, 2020. What has happened this last year for Yamaha?
Well, good to talk to you, Glenn. Thanks for having me. Yeah, 2020, what a year, I should say. I think more than anything, as a company, we learned a lot, in the piano industry, in the market, as well as, about us as a company. Um, if I were to kind of summarize it, is, there there are a lot of music lovers out there. You know, during a global pandemic, it's very interesting, in terms of how Yamaha as a company, which we are, a modestly large company, having to pivot in a way, which can be challenging,
Mhm.
especially dealing with something that had such a large global impact.
Right.
Of course, for Yamaha being a Japanese company, but having subsidiaries all over the world, having to coordinate all of that together, as a unified global team, of course, is challenging but rewarding at the same time. We found that many of the consumers with other recreational activities such as sports and these kinds of things just not happening anymore. Where does the outlet go? Of course, we've always had great creative people in the world, but I think finding that you know uh, people who didn't know they had these gifts within them, finding that at home, because many parents, for example, would be purchasing instruments for their children in lieu of doing other activities.
Mhm.
um it's quite a beautiful thing. So I mean, learning about that and then finding out how do we keep up with demand, because of course one of the big challenges with the pandemic was the effect it had on our factories. And Yamaha as a company, in terms of our acoustic pianos, and we own and operate all of the facilities that manufacture our instruments, our
Right.
pianos.
Right.
So of course, Japan, you know speaking in general, I mean, did okay with the pandemic, I suppose, when compared to other parts of the world. And we have been able to operate at a normal capacity for the most part of 2020. Um, but like our factories in Indonesia, you know, we're not able to do that. And of course, many of our entry level products, piano products, the B series pianos, upright pianos,
Mhm.
the P22 piano, and the GB1K, it was a little bit more difficult. Luckily, with our infrastructure, many of the parts for those pianos actually are still built in Japan. So
Right.
with our Japan um, facilities operating at normal capacity, we're able to still still help with production on those particular models. But yeah, I mean, it's been very, very interesting.
Mhm.
Kind of seeing, I guess you could say, the love for the piano kind of blossom in this kind of pandemic, which of course has been is a terrible thing and has been hard for a lot of people. But
But
if
it
something
is one of the
positive came out of it, it was that.
yeah, it's one of the unexpected consequences of COVID, was that
Yeah,
people are at home playing the piano,
yeah,
which is good.
exactly.
Yamaha's promotion, which was great over Christmas time, was they have a gift, help them open it.
Mhm.
And like never before, we're seeing a lot of kids, adults discover their gift, and that's been fabulous. Um, People know Yamaha. Yamaha's a global entity. Tell us something about Yamaha that viewers might not know about in terms of product and what they offer to the acoustic piano world.
Well, I mean, I could say that Yamaha as a global company, um, you know, had a very, very modest beginning.
Hmm.
Maybe a lot of people don't know the full story of Yamaha. I think because we make so many products and it's so diversified. I think a non-piano player, if you said Yamaha, they might think of a motorcycle or something, and
Right.
which is understandable. I mean, everyone has to drive to get around in the US. So you probably see more motorcycles than you do see pianos. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, you know, modest beginnings. We started as a musical company. The first, you know, large scale product after the initial reed organ was the acoustic piano. So, you know, for those people that maybe aren't as familiar with the Yamaha brand, I mean, we could very much say that, you know, we started as a piano company. You know, piano is and music is still a very, very large part of the company. I think a little trivia is I believe, you know, one in four instruments sold globally is a Yamaha instrument. That just speaks to, you know, kind of our philosophy and you know, what we're trying to do in terms of sharing music, you know, with
Yeah.
the world, which is really our
And,
main goal.
and Yamaha's focus in the last while has been on handcrafted and upper end premier pianos. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's an interesting way of saying it. The kind of the idea of handcrafted products is um, holds, I think, a higher regard currently in this world of technology and manufacturing and efficiency. You know, and of course, I think every company strives to be efficient, but I think what we have to remember is, you know, Yamaha was formed in 1887. There was not there was no robots back then, so
Right,
you know
right.
we've had the handcrafted DNA in the company
All
since the
along.
beginning.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, you know, we kind of look at handcraft now as kind of like something that's specialized, but you know, everything that we do, even with you know, with manufacturing or more of the kind of streamlined processes, it all stems from the handcraft.
Mhm.
But yes, our current CF series pianos, those are all handcrafted. We you know, we have wood scouts that scout the wood. We have a wood mill, Kitami in Hokkaido, that does the aging process. All the wood materials are sent as raw materials uncut to our factory in Kakegawa, and we have our concert grand piano workshop that basically builds those instruments all from hand. Um, in addition to that, we have our SX series pianos.
Right.
Those are kind of a hybrid of our streamline process. I don't like to call it assembly line.
Mhm.
I mean, you have to assembly things and things are in a line,
Right, right,
but
right.
you know, additional care, you know, for all of our pianos, there's so much care taken, but there's some additional care taken with the SX series. Um, it's a similar process to our CX, but additional care is taken in the wood aging process and the
Mhm.
wood drying process and seasoning. And in addition to that, every SX piano goes to our concert piano workshop for voicing, regulation, tuning. So
Right.
just the extra step there.
So just to clarify, you have the CX series and then the SX and then the CF is the concert level. Is that correct?
Correct. And I can kind of map out all of the series. I think maybe people watching might be curious about it. So if we're talking about grand pianos, you know, we can start with our GB1K, which is kind of positioned as our entry level baby grand piano.
Right.
That piano is assembled in Indonesia. The frame parts and some of the wood parts are manufactured in Japan and then shipped to into Indonesia, actually. And then the piano is completed and shipped from our Indonesia factory. Our GC series pianos, those are all built in Japan,
Mhm.
in our Kakegawa factory. Those are two baby grand models. We have a 5.3 and a 5.8 in that lineup. And then we have our CX series of pianos, which ranges from 5.3 to our 7.5 footer, the C7X.
Right.
And that is the successor to our C series pianos. I think people are pretty familiar with the C series. As a C7, I think, is probably the most recorded piano in pop
I
music
think so.
history.
Yes.
The CX series is a successor of the C series, and a lot of the same philosophies behind that series, but incorporates the learnings and the technologies of what we've created within the CF.
Mm.
So there's some CF DNA in the CX series pianos.
Mm.
The
And
next in
those
the
came
lineup,
out.
I'm
Those
sorry, go
came
ahead.
out 2014 CX?
CX was 2012.
12. Okay.
Yeah. So CF was 2010, CX was 2012.
Right. Okay.
And then I guess you could say above the CX. I don't like to really say above, but I like to kind of say, different flavor of piano is the SX series. And, again, that again is a hybrid of our, handcraft and what we do with our CX line.
Right.
Interestingly, we had the S series prior, but we kind of feel that the SX series is something completely different. So while we can kind of say that there is some DNA that exists still from the original C series in the CX, can't say so much about the SX because the S series and the SX, they do kind of fit differently. Yeah, in their characteristics.
And changing gears for a minute, in the upright line, your newest piano is the P22. I think we saw it last year, but tell us a little bit about how that's changed over the years.
Sure. Yeah. So the P22 was introduced at NAMM 2020. So this is the 2020 was kind of its debut year. P22 actually has existed for a number of years in different iterations. Very, very popular institutional piano. We kind of label it as our workhorse piano for institutions, something that can be played every day and moved around quite a bit. So, it kind of went a little bit without the design change. We always like to kind of look and review models and continue to refine the products, if necessary. And the P22 seemed like one that, just getting a lot of feedback from the institutions and technicians and whatnot, that it was time for a refresh. So we did improve the back posts design of that piano. We did change the durability a little bit, some additional reinforcement in the piano. We redesigned the sidearms. We redesigned the music rest of the top frontboard. Now the top frontboard, the entire thing can actually be used as a music rest. And prior models that you couldn't do that. We included a soft close on the instrument, which was not in the previous generation. So kind of all these little tweaks and improvements to the piano that have been requested for a number of years.
Well, as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just make slight improvements.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, everything that people love about the P22, we wanted to remain intact, and everything that we could improve. Durability, tonality, some of the practical use things, some functions, we wanted to make sure. In addition to that, there also was a large request for a silent version of this piano, or with our silent technology. And just to kind of give you, a summary of that is basically, we have our silent piano series, which is a silent piano technology that we install at the factory to, select pianos. The P22 up until this point was not included in that. What it does, it allows the player to mute the hammers and then utilize our digital tone generator. So for people who aren't familiar, we've been in the digital piano business for a long time. We actually we're the ones that kind of started it. But yeah, and we have a long history of our tone generator technologies and those kinds of things, and we incorporated in the P22. It was a big request because practice rooms and this kind of thing. Just adding another dimension to the piano, adding to that functionality and the usage.
Yeah, that's great. So the crystal ball, what is 2021 going to hold for Yamaha? What's the prognosis? What's the outlook?
Well, I mean, I think in 2020, what we learned in terms of continuing to communicate the value of music. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. Working with our dealers obviously was a big thing. The piano industry is still a very traditional industry in terms of brick and mortar. There was a number of areas in the US that were completely locked down, so we had to provide a lot of support. So 2021 just continuing to provide that support and those tools to to our dealers, obviously, so that they can help consumers decide on what the right piano is for them. We want to make sure that we continue to improve accessibility to these instruments. We do make a lot of pianos, right? No one will say that Yamaha doesn't make enough pianos. We make a lot of pianos,
Right.
but each piano has a purpose, from our concert grand pianos all the way down to, our entry level upright pianos. And the reason why we do that is because we want to make sure that, we provide accessibility,
Right.
to these beautiful instruments to people of all walks of life, all different, levels, all different parts, in
And
their
those
life.
price points actually extend all the way down through digital piano and keyboard, like
Correct.
literally from a few $100s
Yep.
on keyboards all the way up to plus $100,000.
Yeah, exactly.
There's pianos at every level that Yamaha has filled in. It
Yeah, I
doesn't.
mean, I know we're primarily talking acoustic piano, but yes, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it's, um, we could say strategically, it's kind of Yamaha's built that way. Yes, we make tons of different products, but I mean, we want to support that musical growth,
At
all the
every
way
level.
from someone who just, maybe wants to play once a month or once a year to,
Yeah.
the virtuoso that's, playing professionally. So, we want to continue to, make sure that the pianos are accessible, and whether that's through product innovations, or whether that's through, campaigns and promotions.
Mhm.
Um, we want to continue that.
Well, everyone starts off as a beginner, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
and so everyone has a beginning point where they enter their music passion, whether it be lessons or just playing for fun. Everybody
Yep.
starts at the beginning, and so Yamaha
Mhm.
has continued to provide accessibility at every price point, at every level, and yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time, and
Sure. Well,
yeah,
thanks for having me.
I hope you have a great 21. Thanks so much.
You too. Thanks.
All right.